Trump continues to reel from several negative books and op-ed pieces published recently about his administration. In fact, the president is pushing the New York Times to say who the author is of that anonymous op-ed piece from a senior-level staffer that said the president is unstable.
Well, now former Trump administration staffer Omarosa Manigault Newman says she thinks she knows who it is. And she, of course, is the author of a new book about the president. It's called Unhinged, an insider's account of the Trump White House. Omarosa, morning. Thanks for being with us.
Nice to have you back.
Yes.
So let's weigh in then. If you think you know, because we know that some of the staffers have said that they would take a lie detector test, even the vice president. We know people have written letters saying it's definitely not me. But you feel you know who's the author.
I went back and looked at all of the emails. First of all, it sounded very familiar to me, the writing style. I went and looked at all of the emails out of Vice President Pence's office from his senior staff, and it just seems to me that it came off the desk of possibly Nick Ayers, his chief of staff.
Why?
Because of the writing style, some of the, of course, choice of terms, but more importantly, the tone of the op-ed is very consistent with Nick Ayers.
What's going on with you and dropping tapes and recording people and stuff like that? Because everybody says, you know, it's a little, that maybe you should be prosecuted for doing some of that stuff and doing it in places that required security clearance and you know, had signs outside, no recordings.
Yeah, except for the fact that I would have never dropped the tape had President Trump said that my book was false and that I couldn't back it up. And
I know,
that there
but
was
you're
no
still
veracity.
recording stuff where you should, in places
absolutely.
where you should not have been recording.
No, I was in a place where I shouldn't have been. The chief of staff of the White House took me into the Situation Room to have an HR meeting, which is highly unusual, which is why I protected myself. Had I not recorded that, you would have never heard him threatening me, saying things will get ugly for me. There's going to be damage to my reputation. And he even threatened me with a court-martial. I knew something was off when I wasn't allowed to take my assistant in the room, I wasn't allowed to leave, nor was I allowed to have counsel. So in this current environment, particularly in a White House where everybody lies, I took the dramatic steps protecting myself.
But it wasn't just that one time, because as you're dropping all these tapes, the communication team was having a meeting. That's the one where the president,
Donald Trump was making fun of the Niger attack.
Right, with the U.S. soldiers that were killed.
Not cool.
So it wasn't as if just that one time you felt a little threatened.
Yeah.
You entered the White House, I guess, thinking that down the road you might need to have this to back you up on any and everything?
Yes, because this is probably one of the most unprecedented White Houses I've ever been. This is my second term of tour of duty in the White House. I previously served in the Clinton administration. But yeah, I make no excuses or apologies.
Did you record when you were with the Clinton administration?
No, it's 20 years ago, but thank you. And right now I'm in the middle of arbitration with Donald Trump, so I can't go into much more detail about it. But yeah, I certainly protected myself. And I'm going to say this, if you're working in an environment with a toxic boss, if you're in an environment where people lie and backstab and all that, I will say to anyone at home, protect yourself. And don't go into rooms with men who lock the doors and threaten you by yourself. If you're invited into a room with a man like General Kelly, a 4-star general, and he doesn't allow you to have anybody in there with you, protect yourself.
Some people say, though, you're an opportunist and that you're dropping these recordings when the book sales go down to kind of like bring
my book sales haven't gone down. I've been number one on the New York Times.
No, I think you're number 5 right now on New York Times.
For the 16th, for the 9th, which was just Sunday, I'm number 1. Let's be very clear. Sunday's list, which will be the 16th, I'm number 5. But right now, on the 12th. Okay, because I
looked it up online.
And you saw what date? On what
Today.
Date? No, on the 16th. Let's be very clear. I don't lie. I'm number 1 right now. On the 16th.
Okay. So are you happy?
No, I want to clear the record. John McCain, which I'm honored to have him knock me off the number 1 position, will be number 1. So let's clear the record. I don't just throw out numbers without
Are you happy
facts.
with the sales of the book? Because at one point they did dive a little bit, down 40%.
No dive. Let's be clear. Because I think
dive
it's important.
at 40%, and then all of a sudden the recordings.
Yeah. The first time books come out, it includes the numbers of pre-sales. And so the numbers are going to be large in the first week. The next week, which does not include pre-sales, are going to be your normalized numbers. So there was no drop. It just did not include, in addition to that, pre-sales. So there was no drop. I'm almost at 100,000 in sales. My book is doing well. I'm not going to allow people to have this narrative that you can be on the bestsellers list and you're felling up, because number one is a really great accomplishment, and I'm not going to let anybody take that from me.
Let's talk about you in the Black community. In the book, you talk about how you felt that the Black media sort of did not treat you objectively. You talked
Not
about
all of them.
Okay.
But definitely NABJ when I went
All right,
down
when
there.
you were at NABJ
Yes.
in New Orleans, and you talked about how you were invited to give a speech and some of the panelists dropped out knowing that you were coming
Right.
in. You then talk about Reverend Earl Sharpton when you were getting ready to talk to National
Yes.
Action Network, that he berated you and scolded you on national TV.
Right.
Since you have left the White House and gone on your tour, written your book, do you feel that your perception within the African American community has changed, embraced you a little bit more, where I'm sure you weren't feeling that love before?
Well, let's be clear. First of all, African Americans are not a monolith. We don't all have this group think where we think all alike and the same. So I received a tremendous amount of support from some sectors of the Black community, but there were others who supported Hillary Clinton who were very, very angry that there was an African American woman in the White House. And I pushed back against that, because we can't all be in the same party and all think the same way and have the same agenda. It's important for us to have diverse views and positions. When I went to NABJ, I was very surprised, because, as you said, these were journalists who invited me to talk about my father's murder. And instead, we had Black Lives protesters standing up, throwing up their fists, turning their backs, not wanting to have a dialogue. We should put partisan politics aside. We have to put this country ahead. And unless we can come to the table and have a civilized debate, I don't know that that would happen.
Let me ask you something. You're an accomplished author. You worked in the White House. You've been on reality shows. Are you looking for your own talk show?
Well, I had a talk show pilot, several years back, and it was a really good experience.
But it never made it. Are you open to doing your own talk show?
Absolutely. And there are so many different opportunities that I have been entertaining even before I went into the White House. And so I'll make decisions, but right now I'm focused on the midterms.
Reality show? Would you do a reality show again?
I just did. I did a Big Brother earlier this year.
Right.
It was a lot
Another
of
one
fun.
or no?
Oh no,
You're done.
I love entertainment, so I will go into that realm. But right now, I'm focused on politics and the midterms, most importantly.
One thing I'm curious about, I've heard a lot of people say, I am no Omarosa fan, but if she brings down the president, I'm okay with that. So is that what you're trying to do?
Well, I think most importantly, I think it's important for us to save the country. Right now, I see under this administration a lot of damage being done to democracy, and at some point, somebody has to be bold enough and brave enough to take on the wrong and the corruption that's taking place in the White House.
All right, the book is called Unhinged. We debate on what number it is on the New York Times bestseller
The facts
list.
are the facts. On Sunday, a new list will be out, and that's the list you're referring to.
All right, all
Yes.
the best. Nice to
Thank
have you
you,
back here,
Omarosa.
Omarosa.